Welcome, one and all. I'm Artie Decker here for PSN, rolling into week 3. Let's just get started out by looking at last week's fallout. Looking here, just keep an eye on this game. Just it'll make sense later on. As May Jemison actually played without their quarterback and lost a game to a rival Lee squad 28-14. Um, Looking forward here, let's look at nice win for Auburn. Um, Austin. We actually picked Florence to win this ball game, but Austin once again, it's not as pretty as it was last year, or as impressive as it was last year, but they just continue to find ways to win, even not being so high powered offensively. Looking forward here, let's look at a game I told you to keep an eye on. Oak Mountain, good little team. Nobody really talks about them. They kind of get lost in the shuffle of those big 7A schools. But Hewitt Trussville struggles and has to win a shootout to get out of there with a win. Sparkman, as we talked about last week, uh, we like them to go ahead and sneak out of there with a win, and that's exactly what they did. Coach White and company. The big, huge showdown. Hoover, or rather Thompson, got off to a bad start, muffed a punt early, give Hoover an easy touchdown, and you just never allow Hoover to jump on you and have any success. And I mean, Talia Tungavaloa, he played great. I want to say somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 yards passing, but it just wasn't enough as Robbie Ashford and George Pickens hooked up a lot. And I think the biggest key was the offensive line for Thompson just could not handle the defensive line of Hoover, which enabled them to slow them down just enough to get out of there with a huge win in that de facto region title game. There's another game we kept on. Told you Spain Park was kind of on upset alert there. Vestavia playing pretty well. Sneaks out of there with a huge win for them. Fort Payne it's kind of come out of nowhere. We definitely had that one wrong. Um, I expected it to be close. Don't get me wrong, but I thought Albert Bull would probably pull that out. To my understanding, started out 28-0. Uh, Dale Pruitt and company come back, scored 21, and then Fort Payne finished them off in the fourth quarter. But nevertheless, huge win for Coach Elmore and his Cats. Uh, Taking a look, Stanhope Elmore actually upsets Ben Russell. Didn't really see that one coming. Looking on here, let's look at Decatur and Coleman. That's a very impressive win for Decatur in that one. Hazel Green, nice win over a struggling Buckhorn. Um, Oxford, we talked about Pell City playing as well as they were, but just kind of run into a buzzsaw as the Yellow Jackets take them out 33-0. We spoke of Pinson Valley should have a whole lot easier time with Shades Valley this time around, and it definitely was 49-7 on that one. This was an interesting game. Scottsboro, not from the score standpoint, just from the historical standpoint. This first time Scottsboro had played Ardmore since 1930. I don't know the backstory behind that. You'd have to do some digging, but I'm sure it's interesting. But they get the win nevertheless. So all of a sudden, not a lot of expectations coming in this season. They're really, the only bright spot they have on the team is the Manning kid, and he's pretty good, weapon, but not a lot of expectation for Don Jacobs and company. But yet they all of a sudden are 2-0 going forward. Looking on, we have, as I said, Boaz, just kind of shocking everybody, rolling over a bad Douglas team, 49-7. Brewer taking care of business against a struggling Arab as they still search for that first win. Um, let's look at Madison Academy. A lot of people thought East Limestone might have had a shot, but Mustangs pull away late and win that one. Etowah just takes care of business going to Crossville in a blowout win there. Uh, Madison County Gunners for a game of struggling teams, and Madison County was able to get the W in that one. And as Gunnersville still just searching for answers, especially offensively. Um, nice win for Central Clay over Mumford. To my recollection, I would say Mumford has probably won that game the last 2 years, but not this year as the new old coach comes in and gets the win in that one. Looking on, we have kind of a shocker here. Sardis, we expect them to go ahead and take care of a struggling Southside, but Southside must have played pretty well and snuck out of there with a win. So, showing some life as where maybe we had kind of counted them out. A team that's just continued to struggle after such success last year. St. Clair County just gets mowed over by Moody. Um, Jacksonville just continues to roll over a struggling Asheville. Anniston gets a big win. Um, we actually picked Cherokee County to sneak out of there with W, and Anniston just wasn't having it. So, congrats to them. Looking forward here, let's say, it's North Jackson's score. I know Danville's awful. Don't get me wrong, but the Chiefs, man, live. If you see them on your schedule, you're shaking in your boots at this point, as they have yet to give up a point, and I believe they're averaging somewhere in the ballpark of 62 points a game. That's just ridiculous. So they're definitely somebody to keep your eye on, as their stock is climbing by the week. Looking forward here, Hillcrest Evergreen, nice dominant win. Hopes Bluff just takes care of business. Nice win for Hanley as they're continuing to try to build that program back up. Um, Randolph rolls over a struggling West Morgan. Rogers, nice little win there. That 1 versus 5 battle, as we spoke of, Simon Smith, UMS Wright. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark it down. UMS Wright will be back in Auburn to defend the title coming up this year. Mark it down. Looking on, let's look at Sachs rolling over, a nice little win there. Westminster just continues to just dominate people as they roll over Colbert Heights. Big win for T.R. Miller as Coach Etridge trying to get things going there. Pennington, I believe, ties a school record, if not broke a school record, with 71 points over a struggling Huntsville. Fulton Bell bounces back with a nice win. We actually picked Holly Pond, but midfield was able to sneak out of there with a W. But still, great effort on their part of the Broncos. Looking forward here, let's look at Coach Luke Pruitt. Actually rolls over just a pitiful friendly team this year, 54-7. So we really don't really know who Pisgah is still at this point. We probably won't until roughly about week 5. Geraldine just smokes Plainview. They just continue to struggle. Believe this game was 21-7, and at halftime, and I don't know what happened in the second half. It got ugly fast in that one. Piedmont rolls over an improving Pleasant Valley. We got Glencoe still struggling and just gets mowed over by number 1 Randolph County, 41-0. Sylvania really struggling. Really didn't want to pick them last week, but just could not find the guts, I guess, to pick Susan Moore. But they sneak out of there with a win. So all of a sudden, Susan Moore's off to a fantastic start, just kind of out of nowhere. After I believe being 4-6 last year, they've already won 3 games. So really, congrats on that. We talked about this game. Weaver Welborn should be a classic. It was exactly that. Weaver sneaks out of there with a win, as we said. Winfield, I believe this matchup was somewhere in the neighborhood of 9-4. Winfield actually sneaks out of there with a slight upset, knocks off the Wave in that one. Let's look at Addison bouncing back with a nice win. Cedar Bluff just takes care of business. Colbert County rolls over a continuing to struggle Tanner. Probably the game of the night right here. Overtime thriller. North Sand hits a pass with less than a minute to go to tie the game, and to my understanding, they actually missed the extra point, if not go for two. Forces it to overtime. North Sand throws a pick, and one of the greatest weapons in high school football is a great kicker, and Ernie turned to his as they knock it through and get a huge win. And in my mind, that game was for number two in the region as it stands right now. And all of a sudden, Collinsville's two, North Sand's three, but just a great effort. We actually picked North Sand. The magic was there, but it didn't, just needed one lousy point to make it happen, but just couldn't do it. So congrats to Coach Willingham on the win. Ranburn rolls over Gaston. We kind of saw that coming. Ranburn all of a sudden is just off to a great start of rolling over some of these lesser teams. Luverne gets a big win. Ohatchee looking impressive. Leroy, uh, I thought this would be more of a bounce back game for them. Bigger margin of victory, I guess you could say. But RC Hatch gives them all they wanted on that one. Real Town continues to roll. Huge matchup because, as I said, I believe this Outer Sandrock is probably for the last spot, potentially even. It may be number five, as the season goes on. And Rock sneaks out of there with a big road win, 12-7. So all of a sudden, Outer is not looking too good playoff wise. Section, a lot of people come to this game. We expected maybe a sneaky performance by them, but Fife just rolls over them. Evidently, Section just not ready for prime time in this one. Celigent gets a big win over struggling Summerton. Aliceville, big win there. Sheffield rolls over and bounces back. Thorsby, another impressive win. Cleveland rolls over West End. As we spoke of, West End just can't stop anybody. They just cannot stop anybody as they give up another 60 points in that one. Maplesville just rolling over Johnson. Um, let's see. Let's look at Hubbard. Just this was a big matchup coming in this game. You could even you can make the conversation to say this would be the winner would take the lead in that region. And Case has made so many great strides. Coach Wood's done a fantastic job out there, and just I don't know, maybe wasn't ready for the moment. And this Hubbard team is big and fast. So I mean, it's some of the they have the feel of their traditional R.A. Hubbard Cortland style of team, and they roll in this one. So they have all of a sudden took the neck of that region as far as I'm concerned, and are the front runners. The other battle in that region, maybe potentially, I guess, for number two, maybe three, however you want to look at it. Decatur Heritage, very consistent the last 5 years. They go into Valley Head, get just a dominant win over Valley Head on that one. Elba gets a good win there. Faultville. This game was actually tied, to my understanding, at halftime. I really don't know how that happens. I guess maybe it took Woodville a little lightly or whatever, but they come out in the second half and dominate and get a pull-away win in that one. And probably cementing themselves as number three in that region, if not four, somewhere in that ballpark. Uh, let's see. Victory actually beats Gillsville. Um, I kind of expected this. I thought Gillsville had a pretty good shot, though, but Victory gets the win nevertheless. Um, looking on, let's look at Donahoe rolling over Raglan. Donahoe's a pretty good little team. I know that first week they got dominated by a really good team from, I believe, Mississippi. But ever since then, really playing some good ball and gets a big win there. Pickens County, slow start, but dominant win, maybe getting them back on track. Sweetwater, a team all of a sudden, defending champs, not looking so hot. Jermaine Brown and company sneak out of there with a 33-25 win. And as I said, going into this season, that 1A South is just loaded. You don't have to play that bad, and all of a sudden you're a 3 seed instead of being a contender for the state title. And it's that deep. Speaking of deep, you got Lynette, first real good challenge in that 1A South of Wadley, who maybe not quite as good as has been in the last 2 years, but still very solid as Lynette takes care of business in that one. Spring Garden takes out a struggling Winterboro. Chalkville rolls over Niceville, Florida. McGill Tulane doesn't lose much in the regular season. You look at the history over the last 2 3 years. They actually dropped one to West Monroe, Louisiana, 31-24. Big win for the Toros of Spanish Fort as they roll over Moss Point, Mississippi. And then you got this kind of weird matchup for Westbrook and Vinemont. Vinemont's a solid team. Westbrook's a decent team also. So, I mean, it turned out to be really a good matchup as Vinemont sneaks out of there with the win. Now let's take a look at the brand new polls. Hoover back to that #1 spot, saying reunited, and it feels so good as they take that big win over Thompson. Um, let's look. Central Phoenix actually sneaks in that #2 spot. That's kind of interesting that Thompson didn't stay at 2 or actually fall just to 2 on that one. Auburn still just sneaking around there at #4. Hewitt-Trussville, we'll find out kind of who they are this week. Let's look. Bob Jones actually fell to James Clemens, so that kind of hurt their status a little bit, but they do stay in the top 10. Vestavia sneaks in. Sparkman just kind of sneaking around the coop there at 13. Spain Park drops hard to about 15 or 16. Let's look. Anything really? Not a lot changed in 6A, really. Uh, Big matchup, Hartsville Muscle Shoals this week. Uh, that'll tell a lot about both of those. St. Paul, nobody really talking about them, but they are, I believe they will be a factor at some point in this season, even though it is a bigger classification. They're about 14. Decatur, as I've said, that's a sneaky team. Just you don't want to see them on your schedule. McAdoo just quietly 3-0. Looking forward here, let's look at 5A. Etowah, I believe, picked up the first place vote. As of now, they have 3. They had 2 last week. Looking on Madison Academy, actually sneaks in the top 10 this week at #10. Boaz getting some love there at #12 as they go into a big matchup this week that could sneak them in the top 10 potentially. Let's look. We'll say Scottsboro at about 15. That's impressive. St. Clair just continues just to plummet as they're about 17 or 18. You must right, as I've said, unanimously #1 in 4A. Oaks Bluff, we still really don't know who they are at #2. Hillcrest Evergreen's kind of in that same boat. They don't seem like they quite have the magic they had last year. Be interesting to see if they can find that. Jacksonville looking solid as a rock there at 7. North Jackson still not quite getting the big nod, and I understand that they really haven't beaten anybody. To my understanding, I don't think Danville has a win. Obviously, Plainview don't have a win, so and Gunnersville don't have a win. So I get it. Uh, it's going to be one of those things. But as they continue to win, it'll take care of itself. As they are at 11 currently. Cherokee County drops a little bit. I think they were on the cusp of breaking the top 10, but they dropped back some. 3A, Randolph County still #1. Sachs sneaking up on them a little bit at #2. Thomasville actually gets first place vote this week at #5. Piedmont, we still really don't know who they are. Fultondale still holding strong. Gordo tumbles to #9, but stays in the polls. Westminster, one of the really hot teams in 3A. They're at 12. Weaver, another really talented team nobody really talks about. at about 16. Uh, Midfield, just kind of out of nowhere, it's 2-0. Nobody really expected that. Susan Moore, uh, as we spoke of, I don't know where they come from, but they are here and they are a factor, and definitely need to be worried about in that region. 2A5 still number one. Actually, almost unanimously. Ohatchee actually gets the first place vote. And I'm telling you, you need to keep an eye on Ohatchee. Ohatchee is a physical, run it down your throat team. Similar to Fife, I guess you could say, in style. It'll be so interesting to see if those two meet up at some point. Um, Reeltown, heard great things about them, and they continue to rise at number three. Leroy, it's hard to say who they are at this point as they continue to kind of slide a little. Cedar Bluff moves up to eight. I don't understand. They really haven't beaten anybody, but we'll find out who they are as the season goes on. Goshen still hanging strong at number nine. Collinsville with the big win sneaks in the top 10 this week, so that'll set them up for that colossal matchup this week. Um, Red Bay. Nobody really talks about them. They're all of a sudden at number 11. Addison, good strong team there at 14. Ramburn, uh, kind of, they're beasting it right now. It'll be interesting to see when they really play somebody on their level, though, how they respond. Lynette still holding strong, but Maples will charging hard right there behind them. It's going to be a big matchup there for Maples and Linden. Linden actually gets the first place vote this week, so they're going to have an opportunity to really climb the polls if they could find a way to win this week. Brantley actually gets first place vote there at number 5. Elba still holding strong at 7. Pickens at 8. Sweetwater, they're tumbling hard, but somebody still feels like they're talented at number 9. St. Luke sneaks in at number 10. Faulkville, uh, as we spoke of, solid team. Just, kind of nobody really pays attention to them, but they just keep chugging along, and they're at 12. Actually, Mars Hill off to a great start. Just keep an eye on them as well. Um, Hubbard, uh, you know, nobody expected that either. I believe they were somewhere in the ballpark of 3-7 last year, 2-8. Just a horrible year for them. And evidently really did some work in off season, and all of a sudden they're off a 3-0 start and got control of that region as far as I'm concerned going forward. Before we go into this week's schedule and make our picks, let's not get too excited. Let's go ahead and give out a team of the week for last week. I'm gonna give it to Fort Payne Wildcats. Did not see that coming. I heard so many horror stories like 9 kids injured, this, that, and the other. Oh, poor old Fort Payne, and then all of a sudden they come out and just, uh, ramsack Pruitt and his Aggies. So congrats to them on the win and being our team of the week this past week. So let's just jump in. We got a pretty good little matchup there in 7A. Auburn, I believe, number 4, taking on Lee, I believe, number 9 or maybe number 7, somewhere in that ballpark. Top 10 matchup, nevertheless. I would take Auburn on that one in a close one. Looking on, let's look at big matchup there. Uh, Bart Sessions, the Titans, the struggles continue. Austin just finding ways to win football games. I believe they're going to do it again. And I believe, and I know I sound like a broken record, but Bart Sessions and the Titans are going to go down once again and just continue to struggle going forward. We're going to take this is a sneaky little matchup. Bob Jones coming off the loss over James Clemens. Florence really improved, but I do like Bob Jones to sneak out of there with a win, maybe closer than you think on the road. Grissom Sparkman. This in the past, well, I should say actually last year, I believe it was a blowout. Sparkman rolled over him easily. But Grissom's really improved and really got some things going. Would not surprise me at all if they could somehow pull the upset, but I do like Coach White and Sparkman to get the W in that one. Hoover, rolling into Hewitt Trussell. Paul Tyson is going to need a monster game as he, obviously I would imagine watched the film. That Hoover Buck defensive line pretty nasty. They can get after you pretty quick, and I expect that to be basically the same game plan they used against Thompson. And they're definitely going to slow him down, and I believe it's going to be enough, just like last week. And but I, you know, if Robbie Ashford continues to play the way he is, Hoover is just not going to get beat anytime soon. So I like the Bucks to potentially blow them out. Would not surprise me at all. Huntsville going in James Clemens. I take James Clemens on that one. Oak Mountain almost pulled the upset last week. Now they roll into Thompson. Is Thompson going to be in a hangover mode? Tunga Viola is going to have to be sharp, and I believe he will, but this could be close. But Thompson should sneak out of there with a win in that one. Spain Park's going to have to get going because Mountain Brook ain't no slouch. Would not surprise me at all to see Spain Park go down again in that one. Looking down here, let's look at Buckhorn and Albertville. Buckhorn, not this ain't your grandpa's Buckhorn. They're really struggling. They're rolling into Albertville. Um, I really don't know what happened at Fort Payne last week. I thought this Albertville Aggie team was about as good as last year. Maybe they're not. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond this week. If they are what I thought they were. So Jacob Dindy needs to get things going again and get a big region win. And I believe just because it's at home, I think they'll sneak out of there with a win in that one and bounce back. Huge matchup. Clay Chalkville, Pinson. I believe this is somewhere in the ballpark of 2 versus 3, if not 3 versus 4. So huge matchup. Bo Nix, this Clay Chalkville team, they can flat out score. Obviously, Pinson can too. You like points. They're probably going to blow the scoreboard up on this one. I hope they get it reinforced because it might catch fire. Um, it's going to be a shootout, but I don't know. It's hard for me to pick against Pinson. I believe they're going to sneak out of there with a win in that one. And I believe it was a shootout last year that they snuck out of, so maybe a little bit more of the same in that one. Fort Payne, May Jemison, if the quarterback's healthy, I do like them to get the win at home. If he doesn't play, though, like he didn't play last week, Fort Payne could very well sneak out of there with the W on the road. But for some reason, I'm thinking May Jemison. I believe they turned the ball over something like 5 times last week against Lee, and that you know you can't turn the ball over 5 times and expect to win games. So I expect him to be a whole lot more sharp this week and get the win at home, dropping Fort Payne in that one. Lee Hazel Green actually in the past wouldn't say much about it, but both teams playing pretty well. But I would take Hazel Green in that one in a close one. Opelika, Tumpka, Opelika always playing good ball. Uh, they're rolling into a JD Martin led only Wetumpka team. First real good test for the runner up from last year and a current #1. Would not surprise me at all to see Opelika get the win in that one. Looking on, let's look at Alexandria going into Boaz. So, if you'd asked me in the preseason, I'd say Alexandria and a laugher. But I'm kind of feeling the Collins, dominance of that young man and these fired up Pirates. And I think just because it's at home, I like them to go ahead and keep this roll going and get another W and sneak out of there over the Valley Cubs of Alexandria. Looking forward here, let's look at Douglas Crossville. Crossville, they're just not very good at all, and Douglas is just horrible. They're just terrible. So I'm gonna, somebody's got to win basically, and we're gonna take Crossville in this one to potentially get their only win of the year. Sadly, Let's look forward here. Madison Academy going into Brewer. Brewers improved, playing pretty well, coming off a win over Arab. But the Mustangs potentially should roll in that one. Mortimer Jordan going into St. Clair. The struggles will continue for the Saints. Mortimer Jordan probably going to win it big in that one. Sardis going into Etowah. Etowah's probably got just a little too much speed for the Sardis lines, and I like Etowah in a potential pull-away blowout in that one. Scott Spur going into Gunnersville. Obviously, Manning and company playing really well. Coach Jacobs going to the lake. I would say normally Gunnersville, but Gunnersville's just not very good this year, and I like Scott Spur to win it, probably in a blowout as well. Looking forward here, let's look at Jacksonville going into Cherokee County. Cherokee County coming off a hard loss to Anniston, and Jacksonville just buzzsawing people week after week after week. Uh, believe Cherokee County won this game last year in upset fashion, but they're trying to replace Tyrene Dupree. The other kid, Hubbard, he's playing pretty well, but I don't think he's got enough. And the Golden Eagles will sneak out of there with a road win in this pivotal region game. North Jackson going to DAR. Oh my goodness. If you are the scorekeeper, you better pay attention because North Jackson's probably going to drop some points. DAR defensively is just not very good anyway. I mean, they're used to trying to win games at 47, 42, that style, but they have got to find something to slow down North Jackson, and I just don't see it happening. One thing I will say about this game, it will be interesting to see if North Jackson can bottle up that usually explosive DAR offense. That's one thing I want to keep an eye on. Obviously, we're going to take North Jackson, but just keep an eye on that. Aniana going into Hopes Bluff. As we've said, Hopes Bluff still number 2, but there's we still don't know who they are, and they should roll over the Redskins in that one. Looking forward here, let's look at Williamson going to UMS Wright. Williamson, uh, they're a decent team, but UMS Wright should roll in that one. Um, Thomasville should roll over Bayside. As Thomasville, as we said earlier, have a first place vote. Somebody likes them, and they should get a big win in that one. Brindley's just awful, and look for Geraldine to get another blowout win this week in that one. Um, Fultondale going into Pennington. This game was close last year. Be interesting to see if JB Pennington can give him a game again. I think it could be a little wider margin this time around, though, and I think Fultondale will get the win quite easy in that one. Gordo should bounce back over a usually solid Oakland team. Um, Holly Pond should roll over Hansel and get a bounce back win. Um, this New Hope Pisgah game. Be interesting to see if New Hope can bottle up this explosive so far Pisgah offense because New Hope, I mean, they're not winning games, but they're playing some pretty good defense. So it'll be interesting to see if they can slow down this all of a sudden high flying Pisgah offense. But I do like Pisgah to go ahead and get the win in that one. This matchup, I'm kind of I don't really get this. I've kind of listened to some people talk about it, and they're big on Piedmont winning this game, and I'm thinking why? Uh, Piedmont's kind of in a rebuilding mode, and Randolph is still just loaded. Arterio, Hester, the Pestridge kid at quarterback, the Knight kid at running back. So many athletes for the number one Randolph County, and I do like them to potentially blow out Piedmont in this one, and just stake their claim basically to that number one spot being a 1 versus 3 game and expose Piedmont for a rebuilding team. Looking forward here, let's look at Sachs going into Welborn. Welborn, pretty good little team, but Sachs is a buzzsaw. Be interesting to see if Welborn can even keep it close. But they like Sachs to roll in that one. Susan Moore going into Plainview. Susan Moore, we've talked about them a lot in this show. Really improved, and Plainview just the days just get darker as the season goes on for them. And you know, I like Susan Moore, and it could get ugly in this first home game for Plainview. And all of a sudden, don't look now, but Susan Moore is all of a sudden potentially your number one coming out of that region. Normally we talk about your Geraldine, your Sylvania, your Plainview, and in years past throw North Sand in that mix. But all of a sudden, those three are struggling for the most part. And Susan Moore playing some solid ball. It ain't pretty, but they're getting it done, and that's what counts. And all of a sudden, you could throw an argument out there that they're number one team in that region right now. And I look for them to kind of show that in Rainsville. Westminster going into Lexington, and it's going to be a long night for the Bears in that one because Westminster is a buzzsaw right now. Looking forward here, let's look at Bluff going into Rock. Rock really, really struggling offensively. Playing some good defense though. But you know these teams don't like each other. They know each other really well. It's just interesting to see this year because it means something all of a sudden. I've heard in years past that Cedar Bluff kind of coasted in this game, but it didn't really matter to them. Oh, it's going to matter now. I mean, this is arguably their biggest test as a 2A football team. I expect it to be close. I really do. But I like Ivory Star and Company to be maybe just a little bit more athletic and sneak out of there with a road win and push Sandrock to that fifth spot all of a sudden. Because you got to look at it as we spoke of last week. Sandrock, you could make the argument to say that by beating Ider, they're number 5. So if they could somehow beat Cedar Bluff, which I have at 4 currently, I would say that all of a sudden they're in the playoff picture with a win over McWhorter and his Tigers. But I do like Bluff to win it in a close one. Cleveland, Ohatchee. Cleveland, they've been very impressive, but I don't think they're good enough to beat Ohatchee in this big showdown of those two teams. Looking forward here, this is a huge matchup. You can make the argument this is the game of the week. 5 going into Collinsville. Caleb Jones playing great. Barkley running the ball. The McKinney kid, if he sees daylight, he's gone so fast. You could even make the argument that Collinsville's defense has really improved from last year. Obviously, 5's just 5. Anderson just racking up touchdowns right and left. I believe he had 6 last week. Tons of yardage. Just doing their usual downhill, smashing in the mouth style. Be interesting to see how, this will definitely be the biggest test Five's had so far in this young season. And this game, you could make the argument currently is for the number 1 spot in that region. So it's not I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a de facto region title game, but you could make an argument for it. And also looking forward, if you want to really look down the road, Collinsville's probably going to be favored the rest of the way in every game that they play. So if they could find a way to sneak out of there with a big win and knock off number 1, they potentially could go perfect. So there's a lot to be played for in that game. I, and nobody really is giving Collinsville much of a chance, which kind of surprises me because this team, you could make the argument looking at some of the teams that have beat 5 very few, lists there, but that's athletic, able to be very balanced, run the ball, throw the ball, which is exactly what Collinsville is this year. That's the teams that give Benefield's defense the most trouble. So I don't see them shutting them out or anything like that. I think they're going to give them a hard time on that side of the ball. The biggest, I guess, X factor is, can Collinsville's O line protect Jones? Because Fife's just going to pin their ears back like they always do against these athletic quarterbacks and try to get after him. So I mean, if they're able to protect, he's a good enough passer. He's gonna get some opportunities to make some plays. So it's all on that O line as far as I'm concerned. But it's one of those deals. It's an attractive upset pick, but I got a feeling that Collins was just not quite ready to make it happen, and I'm gonna go with five and a closer than you think win in this one, being 1 versus 10. But such a big opportunity for Collins in that one. Eider going in the section kind of, I guess you could say, fell back down to earth last week after such a, you know, showing so much improvement in that first win over New Hope. And Eider, taking a pretty good little thumping from Holly Pond, and to my understanding, losing just a heartbreaker to the Rock last week. Uh, this is a tough pick because I believe last year, to my recollection, we actually picked section to win this game, and they kind of let us down, and Eider got the win. So, you know, I, but for some reason, I got a feeling that section's going to sneak out of there with a huge win and pretty much douse any hopes Eider had of making the playoffs. Looking forward here, let's look at Lafayette Thorsby. This is a 6 versus 7 matchup, huge region game. You could make the case it's a de facto region title game. Thorsby's really playing well, and they're rising fast. And Lafayette, at times, has looked pretty good, and others not so good. So it's just who basically shows up as far as they go. But for some reason, I'm kind of wanting to ride the train, and I'm going to say Thorsby's going to sneak out of there with a win and take control. Luverne should roll over Zion Chapel. North Sand going in Asbury, be a big bounce back win for the Bison. Way too much for Asbury in that one. Should be some serious passing yards for Landon Green. Reeltown should roll over Horseshoe Bend as they just continue to rumble this season. Southern Choctaw probably. I don't see them beating Leroy, even though Leroy is struggling a little bit. It's just not going to happen. Westbrook going into West End. West End, this is a bad matchup because you got a really balanced offense and it's a really bad defense. Expect Westbrook to put some points up as per usual against anybody playing West End and get the win in that one. But it could be really entertaining because I can foresee West End scoring some points as well with their quarterback. Woodland probably gonna get buzzsawed by Ramburn. Donahoe should get an easy one over Winterboro. Lynette going in Altogaville should just take care of business in that one. Pickens should win it easily over Lynn. Maplesville Landon. Spoke a little bit about this earlier. This is a 2 versus 3 huge matchup. Can the Linden Patriots do what they've come very close to doing a few times in the past 2 years, which is knock off the mighty Maplesville Red Devils? I just don't see it happening. Could be closer than you think, but I like Maplesville to get the win in that one. Marcel should roll over Bear Creek. Sweetwater should finally get a win over Millry. Hubbard, Decatur Heritage. You can make the argument, if you throw Faultville out of the picture, that this is a de facto region title game, and I like Hubbard to actually win it pretty easily just because they're a little more athletic than Decatur. Uh, Looking here, we got Garden going into Notasulga. Garden's probably going to be in for a rude awakening. This actually, I take this back. This game actually got flipped. This is Notasulga at Spring Garden, according to Coach Howard on the radio. So, I like Notasulga to win this. They played really close with a really good Randolph County team, and Garden's probably just not ready for them in that one. Valley Head going into Faultville. Valley Head, you know, such I guess encouragement coming out of that ASD game, but kind of fell back down to earth last week, and they're going to see a lot more of the same. Faultville is a lot in that same mold as Decatur Heritage, and I like them to go ahead and get the win at home over Valley Head in this one, which will, you could make the argument, keep them in the hunt for number 2 and pretty much cement them for a 3, if not at worst a 4 if they win this game. And obviously, if Valley Head can win it, they're still in the picture. You could throw them in the 4 race, if not 3. Victory should roll over a struggling Appalachian. Waterloo, Hackleburg. Look for Waterloo to score a lot of points and win it easily in that one. Woodville, quarterback, those guys, they can move it a little bit, but defensively, they've really struggled. And Galesville really struggled offensively, so this should be interesting to see if they can take advantage of struggling Louisville defense. This could go either way, honestly, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say Galesville. They play pretty well at home, and I like them to go ahead and get a win as they just continue to improve. Looking forward here, let's look at Oxford Charles Henderson. Oxford's on a roll. Henderson's playing some pretty good ball, but they're not going to beat Oxford. I expect them to win it quite easily in that one. Sylvania going into Gaston. Sylvania, bitterly close last week, losing a tough one to Susan Moore. Look for them to take a lot of frustration out on Coach Morris and his dogs on the road in this one, and finally get the win and get the season going. Tanner going into Good Hope. Good Hope, not a great team. Could be an opportunity for Tanner to finally get a win and get a little momentum. Be interesting to see if they can capitalize on that. But I would probably go Good Hope in a close one in that one. Let's go to our becoming one of our more favorite parts of the show, and that is our question from our correspondents. And Brock Bennett says, does Collinsville have a chance to beat 5? We talked about it earlier. You could really make the case that Collinsville has an opportunity to win the game and do the unthinkable and take control of that region and knock off number 1 and do all these things. Had so many things go right for them. It seems like, people have made the case of they're a team of destiny. We shall see. To answer your question, they have a great chance, but I just don't see it happening. I definitely just would not bet the farm that they're going to pull the upset, but it would not surprise me to see them do it if that suffices for you. Looking at our other question from Nikita Magnum, his question is kind of a complex, several part question. He says, who's going to get their first win this week? And he lists Sylvania going into Gaston. He lists Ider going into Section. He lists Susan Moore going into Plainview. And he has, I guess that's about it. As we've already said, I like Section to sneak out of there with a win. So I'm going to say no on Ider. Plainview, it's just ugly. There's just no other way to put it. And I like this. It's full of a lot of positive vibes. Susan Moore team to go ahead and keep that misery going for the Bears. And then we have Sylvania. They're not playing that great, but just by physicality alone and just by numbers alone, I think they're just a little too much for Gaston. So I'm going to say yes on the Rams on that one. And actually, uh, the other team, I missed it there, is Crossville. That was his other team of the four. And he has a good point on this one because Douglas is really bad. I mean, really bad. They've lost by average about 50 every single game, and Crossville, not much better. But uh, Crossville, I believe they're going to put it together. It's a home game. It's a great opportunity for them to finally get a win, and I do like them to get it. And I don't know if it's going to be a blowout though. I just I can't see them really blowing anybody out. This could be a 20-point game somewhere in that ballpark, thereabouts over Douglas. Well, that pretty much wraps us up. Thanks for listening as always. This is PSN. I'm Artie Decker signing off, saying just have a great week. Go out and enjoy some of these games and save me a spot on the fence. And as always, God bless.